Hello everyone, you're welcome to another series of it. Now, here is a question. Imagine someone slaps you on the first cheek. We all know that the scripture says that when someone slaps you on the first cheek, you turn the second cheek. Will you turn the second cheek? If you will not turn the second cheek, what will you do? I'd like to get your answers by dropping them on the comment section. That will actually help me to evaluate your trigger level. This series will be talking around how you manage emotional trigger. We all go through emotional trigger. I mean, nobody is exempted. We all have trigger. Even I, your therapist, have something that triggers me to behave certain way at a particular time. The most important thing is, how do we respond to our trigger? Do we even have an consciousness or a consciousness of what triggers us or what is actually triggering us? Okay, I have a particular scenario that happened to me during my BSc days on campus. I had some misunderstanding with some set of cool guys, and I wasn't expecting myself to act out of the trauma, but eventually I found myself being hostile. I didn't even know I was acting out of the trauma. It was while I was thinking about what had happened and why I suddenly became an hostile person, I discovered that I was acting out of the fact that I have been traumatized because of the misunderstanding. That actually triggered me to be hostile. I shouldn't be hostile. Why would I be hostile? If I don't have anything in my mind, there's no reason for me to be hostile towards anybody. And that made me come into that understanding that as individuals we have tendency to be triggered to behave certain ways, to react in certain ways, to do towards certain people at a particular time in certain ways. Why? Because something must have triggered our reaction, something must have caused us to react certain ways, something must have caused that action we are giving to certain people. And anything could cause it. It could be painful experience, background experience, the fact that your trust has been disappointed. It could be betrayers. Probably some of your friends have betrayed you. It could be the fact that you've had sore relationships in the past. People have disappointed you in some relationship, and that just made you felt so insecure in your environment, so insecure with people, so insecure with whatever it is that you find yourself doing. Why? Because you've had something that triggered that reaction, and that reaction has come to stay because that trigger is still staying. And because that reaction is still there, that trigger is still there, there's no way you could have done any better because the trigger is there. And if you've not healed from that thing that is causing you to behave that way, there's no way that reaction can go, because it's still that trigger that is causing that reaction. Now I'm going to be establishing 4 psychological facts about triggers and how it relates with your emotion. Number one is that trigger could be positive or it could be negative. We all have something that causes us to either react in a positive way or probably react in a negative way, depending on what effect the trigger actually has on you. Is it having a good memory on you, or is having a negative memory on you? Or why do you think somebody will suddenly start laughing? That's because there is a trigger of a particular memory that is attached to the person remembering whatever made that person smile in his or her life at a particular moment. That's why I said trigger could either be positive, it could either be negative. Number two, trigger is a proof of who you are. Like many a times, what triggers you to behave in certain way is actually bringing out whether you have unresolved issues or you have resolved issues inside of you. And that is why it is bringing out who you are. It is bringing out the identity of your behavior, how you think and how you tend to perceive life. Probably maybe somebody was passing by and the person mistakenly hit you, and suddenly you just decided to like talk back to the person, probably maybe because you felt the person did it intentional, and it wasn't intentional. But because you've seen people that have done that intentionally to you and they've not handled it well with you, you have tendency to want to do the same to others because you feel everybody might be coming from the same perspective. You might not be able to see others from where they are coming. You might be so overwhelmed by the emotion of that trigger that you will be seeing only yourself from where you are coming. Why? Because you've been triggered in a certain way that is negative and is not making you to see other things around you. Number three, everyone has a trigger one way or the other. Everyone has been triggered one way or the other in different ways that cannot be explained. For some people, it's the environment they find themselves. For some people, it's family. For some people, the kind of relationship or community of friends they found themselves in has actually triggered a negative thing. For example, you can't tell somebody that has been triggered in a negative way in a polygamous family to just start believing that marriage is real. Before the person can begin to believe marriage is real, then the person must have solved unresolved issues in their mind. So everybody has trigger one way or the other. Yours may be different from another person's own. Another person may be different from your own. Number 4 is that trigger tend to help us develop a negative reaction most at times. I mean, before you can actually bring out 1/3 of people that triggers actually help to develop positive energy or positive reaction, that's because they've actually resolved a lot of negative issues in their mind. But many a times you see so many people talking about a painful incident and how it's making them react in a negative way. That's because the trigger is not challenging them positively, it's actually having more negative effect on them than positive effect on them, and that can actually make them behave in certain ways in which they should not even behave. It can make them feel insecure, it can make them feel suspicious, it can make them find it hard to really trust people, it can make them to feel that everybody coming their way is coming to disappoint them instead of coming to build a level of life and love with them. Number 3 is that trigger can lower the expectations of people towards others. Probably if your trigger has come from disappointment and betrayals, you will have issues going into another relationship. If your trigger is coming from family, you have issues believing that there could be healthy family around you. If your trigger is coming from environment, then you will have issues learning to relate with everybody around you. Everybody around you will have problems. Nobody will ever see something good. Why? Because you just have that negative trigger that is making you see things in a negative way and that can make you react in a negative way. In a nutshell, trigger has a lot to do with who you are. Until you resolve those negative trigger that is actually making you to react in a negative way, there is tendency that you will constantly be overwhelmed by the emotions that comes with trigger, believing that everything is all about you when actually you can look at things from the lens of others around you. The earlier you identify your trigger, the easier it is for you to be able to live above your trigger and live a love-filled world. But you cannot embrace love when you have not identified your trigger and you have not looked at how to resolve your trigger. And that will bring me to more talking on this session around how you manage your emotional trigger. Like you to stay glued on these sections as I will be unleashing so many things about different stories on trigger. If you have a story concerning trigger, feel free to share it with us, slide into my DM, or you want to consult us, or you have something that is related to what I just said, feel free to talk to us on Hope Alive Therapy. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also don't forget to invite your friends to be part of this mental health healing. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button. I'm your psychotherapist. My name is Weber. I'll see you in my next session. Bye bye.